Many high-end real estate photographers tend to keep things very close to their vest, being tight-lipped about things they would just rather not share. But in this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain and reveal 7 of the top secrets that pro real estate photographers just don't tend to talk about, but can have a major impact on your work and your career. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up to the top. Starting out at the bottom at number 7 is that pros don't share a lot of their work. In fact, what you see is a very small glimpse if you're following a photographer on social media or even through their portfolio, because as we're going to see throughout some of these other secrets in this video, is that social media really creates quite an illusion. But one of the reasons that we also don't see a lot of the pro work is that when everybody starts out, everybody makes mistakes. So when we see the best of the best out there, we can feel inferior when we take a look at our own work. But the fact is, you're probably shooting just as good. Because the other thing that you have to remember is that it's not all about the quality of the photos that you're seeing. A lot of it is the illusion because of the content of the photos. Remember that luxury gets likes while budget tends to be boring. So you could take a look, for instance, at these 2 kitchens. This one here is kind of an older kitchen. It's still very technically good as far as the photo is concerned. But when we take a look at this photo, which probably has the same type of technical expertise applied to it, it's a more modern kitchen, and this one does get more likes. And I know that because I took both of those photos. I shot both of those kitchens. One has a different content over the other, while both of them really have the same photo quality. So it could be too, when you first start out, you're not getting the high-end luxury gigs, and that's to be expected. Nobody does. Nobody starts out as a real estate photographer and is immediately hired for the highest end properties. So be patient with yourself. Know that also what you're seeing is not always the best of the best from other photographers. Know the quality of your work, and you're going to see then as you go forward as content can reign over quality. The next secret is that pros usually don't like to advertise what they shoot with because a lot of pros use older gear. They rarely use anything new. For instance, most of my shots are taken on a Nikon Z5. That is a budget camera that comes in at about $1,000. And before that, I was using Nikon D610s, and even before that, Nikon D600s. These weren't your flagship Nikon cameras. But you've probably heard the old saying that, anybody can take a good picture. It's more the photographer than it is the camera. But there is a balance that falls in between that. We have to have a camera that's good enough. We have to have lighting that's good enough. Those things are very important. But knowing how to use them is even more important. And really, there's very little difference between flagship cameras and your standard budget cameras in the same line. When it comes to the size of the sensor, maybe you'll get a little bit more megapixels, but really it's how you take the picture, how you light the picture, how you edit the picture. Those things are very important. So don't think that if you're getting into any genre of photography, especially real estate photography, that you need to buy the latest and greatest so that you can show that you're a pro. The best way to show that you're a pro is that whatever camera you have, you make the best of it and take the best pictures possible. The next big secret, and this is a big one, is that pros don't sweat exposure. The biggest thing is we try to get within about a stop or 2 at the most of our exposure. So doing real estate photography when we're trying to expose to the right on the histogram, yes, that's very important, but when time is of the essence, if we get kind of close, that's good enough because we can adjust it in post. Most cameras nowadays, you adjust the exposure up or down, you're really not going to see any noise or degradation in your photos. An important thing though that overrides all this is that you need to make sure that the light and shadows are placed properly. This is more important. This is where you're going to use flash, for instance, to fill things, or you could probably get by also with certain ambient shots to be able to do it. The trick is to have the right footage, that each piece of footage has the appropriate amount of light for the area that you're going to be working with. If each one of those is within about a stop of exposure, that's no biggie. Don't sweat it. You can also mask areas of various images, whether they're from other footage or even adjustment layers, so that you get the type of image that you want. Now, the next tips coming up are very important. These things are essential and they really helped me throughout my career. But before I get to those, I just wanted to mention real quick that if you did want to learn more about real estate photography, then I'd invite you to take a look at my courses on real estate photography. I've got courses that cover professional interiors, expert editing, exteriors, videography, business and marketing, and I also have a series of books on real estate photography as well, and I have links to all of that down in the description for this video. The next big secret that pros usually don't talk about is, yes, they do shoot fast, and you might wonder why. Well, it's not because they're rushed, it's because of reuse. In fact, reuse equals speed. Speed comes from the reuse of camera settings, flash power, light placement, things like that for different angles in similar spaces throughout the property. Because once the exposure and light settings are done for one shot, you just apply them to the others in the same space. This combined with then the one-stop, two-stop rule we talked about where we don't sweat exposure, these things are huge time savers. If you can get yourself within the range where you're applying light properly, but your exposure has a little bit of variance to it, knowing that and just reusing those same settings saves a lot of time. Now, there is an exception to this, and that's when you do architectural and design photography, for instance, for remodel companies, builders, designers, things like that. That, as you probably know by now, that's about 50 to 60% of my work. I still work in the listing market quite a bit, but that's about half, little less than half of my work. And the reason being is that, yes, architectural and design photography does pay more, but the big reason it does is because of this principle. Is that while we're using and reusing stuff on site for mostly the listing market, when you're doing architectural and design work, it's a little bit different because you're getting paid by the hour. So while you're on site, you can take your time doing architectural and design photography to get things exactly right. Your clients will expect that too. And so you can adjust your lighting, your exposures, all that, get all the footage you need, because then when you go back to edit it, it goes very, very quickly. And so you're charging for your time on site and you have very little editing. That's one of the reasons why architectural and design photography pays more, and it's not a scam. It's a matter of getting things as precise as possible so you get the best photo as possible. But when you're talking about the listing market, that's a little bit different. Remember that reuse equals speed. So if you're doing stuff for the listing market and you're going to be doing 3 or 4 shots of one particular space, just remember those camera settings, your flash settings, and just reuse them for every single shot as long as you're getting within about a stop of exposure and your light is placed where you want it. The next big secret is that pros shoot for clients, not peers. Now, that might make sense when I say that and you say that back to yourself, but we tend to forget that when we get on social media. So when we're on social media, once again, we're seeing just a small percentage of what is really being shot, but that leads us then into thinking that, well, we should probably share our work, and if we're just starting out, we should probably ask for some constructive criticism, right? Well, social media works against us on this, and pros know this. It's not that pros don't seek out feedback. They get plenty of feedback from their clients. It's that they don't ask for feedback necessarily from their peers, because if you've ever shared photos on Instagram or Facebook and you asked for constructive criticism, well, out come the torches and pitchforks, because social media will be just rife with people that will want to criticize your work. But these people don't hire you. They're not going to be paying your bills. The best feedback you can get will be from your clients, and that leads us into the next big secret. And that big secret is that high-level pros know that their material is for marketing, not a film festival. So you'll see this a lot, for instance, in real estate videos, where a lot of these real estate videographers are putting in fancy transitions and speed ramps and doing all kinds of amazing stuff that would be great for a Hollywood blockbuster. But for a real estate video, it's just over the top, it's unnecessary, it really is a waste of money. For instance, when I do videography, no matter the size of the house, it usually takes me 20 to 30 minutes to capture all the footage and maybe an hour to edit the whole thing for a video. So it tells you just how simple real estate videos can be and what's really expected. But when it comes to photos, there's also something very similar, and that is known as the editorial trap. It's where photographers might be looking at Architectural and Design magazine or something else that's really just publishing art for other artists. It's really not for the consumer market, and really not then for people that would hire you to do real estate photography for their architectural and design needs, like designers and also remodel companies, builders, and whatnot. Take, for instance, this particular bathroom, and this was the delivered image, but if we were to do it in an editorial style, we can see that it would look darker, and yes, it is very dramatic. And that would definitely appeal to a lot of other photographers and maybe artists, but it's not what the client wants. Instead, this finished image, this is what the client really wants. And this is something that I talk about in another video. When we compare architectural and design photography to real estate, to the listing market, really is something very different when we branch into architectural and design photography, that there are many genres. A lot of people think that, well, it's just binary. It's either you're shooting for the listing market, standard light and bright, or you've got this dark, gloomy, moody stuff, maybe even turning all the lights off to get it even more moody and not worry about color casts. But there are actually many subgenres in architectural and design photography. And although the editorial style is something that is required in some cases, it's not the majority and not the catch-all for doing architectural and design photography. In fact, most real estate photography clients will want something that's inviting, not something that's dark and depressing. So once again, we're up against this thing of, are you shooting for your peers? Are you shooting for photographers? Or are you shooting for your client? And that leads us into the biggest secret that a lot of pros don't like to talk about, and that's that they really don't market their work. Now, it's not that they don't want you to know that, it's that, well, they don't market their work, so you never see that they market their work. And the reason being is that if you're constantly having to market yourself, then you're not getting repeat clients. When you do really, really good work for really, really good clients, you'll have clients that will be paying you to do work for them for many years. Remember this, pros don't cold call. As soon as I hear somebody coming up with a marketing strategy that they're going to just blast out a whole bunch of emails and that they're going to start cold calling on a list, that's the wrong approach. Something I talk about in the business course. You don't need to do that. You'll see that done a lot, and it's done by what I call the photo mills. These are people that don't produce necessarily very good quality, but they have a high turn rate. They're doing a lot of work, but it's not for very good clients. So that's why they're constantly marketing themselves, because someone may hire them for one shoot, maybe two. They're lucky if they get something beyond that. Some do, but for the majority of their work, they just don't. So they have to constantly market themselves to get new people, new clients to come buy their work. So the big secret here with pros is that you seek out clients that are going to have a long-lasting professional relationship with you doing their photography. Those are the ones that count the most. They'll be the easiest to work with. They may be the most demanding on the quality that they do expect. But if you bear in mind these other secrets, these other tips that I've talked about in this video, then as you get these really good clients, you'll have long-term sustainable work and also work that will pay better over the long run.